Dave Arnold, your host of Cooking Issues, coming to you live from the heart of Manhattan and Rockefeller Center Newsstand Studios, joined as usual with John behind me. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah, everything good?
Yeah, everything's great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Got Joe Hazen rocking the panels. What's up?
Hey, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right, I guess. It's fine.
You look good.
Huh? Sweaty. You like that? You like that sweaty
I don't
look?
mind sweat.
All right. I think on telephone we've got Nastasia the Hammer Lopez. How you doing, Stas?
Good.
Yeah? Yeah? Nice. How's the great state of Connecticut?
Fine.
Great, what is it? Best small state, best state? Isn't that the motto? It's not really nutmeg. No one says that. Like if you go to a bookstore in Connecticut and they have a section on Connecticut, which they should, otherwise why are you shopping there, right? It says small state, best state. You know what I'm talking about, John?
No, I don't.
Oh, come on, dudes. Thought you were my Connecticut man behind me.
I love
backing me up.
Connecticut, but I've never heard that.
We got Quinn up there in Vancouver Island.
Yep.
Nice.
Hey.
Nice. And do we have Mr. Molecules back?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Jack, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah?
good.
Yeah? All right.
I'm a little depressed. Depressed overhearing your pre-show chat, but yeah.
Oh, we were talking before the air with, and as we do now, we'll introduce our special guest today is Marc Forgione, well-known chef of zillions of restaurants, a new hospitality group he's going to be talking about. Was the youngest Iron Chef, I think. Was that right? Does that still have meaning, youngest Iron Chef?
I mean, I guess I'm definitely not the youngest anymore, but
Yeah, well,
I was 13 years ago.
Yeah, and it turns out if you don't die, you're not the youngest of anything anymore. You know what I mean? Which is good. You don't want to be. You want to stay alive. All right. So what we were talking about before we were on the air is that how robots are going to take over everything, and it's only going to be like the small group of people who actually care, right? In other words, there's. Okay, do you use the term shoemaker in terms of like a chef who doesn't really care, just showing up, clocking their job and getting out, but doesn't really have a passion for it? They're not bad at what they do.
I call those 9-to-5ers.
9-to-5ers? Yeah. So we used to, at the FCI, the term everyone used to use is shoemaker. They're a shoemaker, which is freaking weird because you know what? Making shoes,
it's craft.
It's a freaking great craft. I mean, like a person who's good at making shoes, like that's the thing. I don't know why we're insulting shoemakers, but it's like shoemaker. But in other words, like there's not going to be that much room 20 years from now for the shoemaker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the 9-to-5er.
I don't think we have a long enough session to get into all that, but as we were saying before, it's just a little scary, but
yeah.
That's why I try to give advice to people all the time, like just instead of joining, like try to carve your own path.
Right. Well, is it that we're all going to be, in other words, like, are we all going to end up like Wall-E, where we're in like massage chairs all the time, hooked up to like a virtual nightmare? Or like with like stuff being pumped into us, or in which case we don't need to make money because it's all virtual, it doesn't matter. Or right, are we going to all become rich because we can produce so much, or are we all going to become poor because no one needs us anymore? Who knows? Hey, so we weren't supposed to talk about that on air, but that's what we were talking about beforehand. And Jack was like, "Oh, it's depressing." Is that pretty accurate, Jack?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So. Now's the time on the show where we shoot the breeze over any interesting food experiences or whatnot that we've had over the past week. And for Jack, 2 weeks because he wasn't here. Anyone got anything? Anyone got anything good?
Nothing on my end.
Yeah.
Sadly.
2 weeks, you haven't eaten one good thing. You haven't made one good thing. You haven't eaten one good thing.
I mean,
Completely honest, no. But what do you got, John?
So well, I don't know. So Mark here, who has like what now? How many restaurants are you working? You're opening another one, reopening another one right now. He has an interesting food story related to the restaurant or unrelated to the restaurant. Could be either.
A little bit of both.
All right,
actually.
what do you got?
So my family from Italy, the Italian side, we're from the south. A little just above the boot. And the way that we do ragu, I don't know if anybody on here is Italian, but. We do like a Sunday sauce, but one of the kind of interesting things about the Southern style is that you take the meat out of the sauce and you kind of keep it warm somewhere else. And I had everything from we had a tongue in there, beef shank, pork copa, a whole bunch of different things, like basically everybody in the pot. But then the cool part about it is you puree all the vegetables and the sauce and the fat, which is the best part because it emulsifies. And then you put that on pasta before you eat the meat. And every time I introduce this to somebody, they're like, it blows their mind that you can take something like this simple, and then after you eat this bowl of pasta, then you eat all the braised meat with like salsa verde and pickled peppers, and we're going to initiate that at 1/5 in a couple weeks. So I figured I'd practice at home on Sunday.
Oh, that's super old school. Like they do that in Italy, because that's the way my stepfather's family always did it in Boston. Like the Boston Italians, like that was the way. But for there it was always the same. It was always sausage with the fennel, pork chop, braciole, meatballs.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like we
course.
didn't have all the other fancy stuff in it. Like
Yeah,
well,
that's
it's
actually
funny.
how
The stuff
my
I just mentioned is
family
the
did it,
peasant
too.
stuff.
what'd you say, Quinn?
That's how my family does it too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My grandparents are from Calabria.
Yep, Southern. Yeah.
And they call it gravy, not freaking sauce in Boston, right? And it's macaroni and gravy and then the meat comes out separately. But there's something really nice about staging it in stages, because it implies an arc to a dinner that is kind of there, that just belongs. You know what I mean? But how does it in a restaurant? Is that work in a restaurant setting? I guess it does if they're going to be forced to have a tasting anyway, or if they're doing a family style. Like, what's the presentation going to be? What do you think is going to work?
We're about to find out. We haven't done it before or yet. But the idea is, we're going to charge like a prefix, but included in that prefix, it'd be a Sunday night thing. You get the 2 courses, so you're not just like buying the Sunday gravy and you get an individual bowl. Like the idea will be like, say it's 4 people, you guys all order the Sunday sauce, and then everybody will get their pasta first, and then we'll just put all the meat in a giant pot in the middle, and then everybody can kind of just pick at it and have fun. And you're kind of trying to bring like the Sunday sauce in Boston that you used to have, into a restaurant setting.
Yeah. I haven't had that style in years because they're all dead.
Yeah.
Like everyone that used to make that for me in Boston is dead. So it's so it's like it's weird. It would be interesting to have it again. Like I've had that happen a couple of times. So my stepfather's father, who in Boston, he was a butcher, and his specialty was lamb. And so when I was a kid, he would get the baby lamb, the unweaned like lamb, because he used to slaughter all of his own lamb, and that's why he got out of the business. Actually, he's like, they're not going to let me slaughter anymore in the city, so F it, I'm out. You know what I mean? And I remember the first time someone served me baby lamb at a restaurant, and I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, baby lamb. I know that people probably are horrified. Baby lamb is delicious.
Of course.
At Easter
great.
time?
I cooked one last Easter.
Really? Are you going to do one this year or no?
No, my in-laws don't like lamb.
Oh. What about goat?
They don't like goat. That's for sure. So I got them a tenderloin, and I ordered a little bit of lamb for me.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't take that many. I mean, baby lamb weighs what? Like I remember once I got one for him when he was like in his 90s. And I told him to wait, and I forget what it was. It was like 14, 15 pounds.
Yeah, I was about to say probably 15 pounds.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that's real. That's not the garbage one. Yeah. I was like, yeah, dude. I mean, I'm not going to buy you garbage. You're 90. This is your last time maybe you're going to ever have it. You know what I mean? So, like, anyway. Old school. Delicious. All right, what about you, Stas? You got any food stuff going on?
Nope.
No? All right. What about you, Quinn? Quinn, you always have a good, some sort of good food catastrophe that you've been working on.
Actually, I didn't do much, but something that I found at the grocery store that was very unusual, fresh fenugreek was just at the supermarket. So I made like a basic sort of pesto, then a pasta with like a little burrata on top. It's pretty good.
The leaves or the seeds?
The leaves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like a fresh herb.
Yeah, I only have the seeds. I think I've said it before. Fenugreek is that spice that I really like, and I never cook with it.
Me neither.
I have it, but like whenever I smell it, I'm like, oh, fenugreek, yeah. Like it's like, oh, it's got that mapley smell from Sotolone, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. And then I have it at home, but I'm never like, hey.
It's got dust in the spice cabinet, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have my stuff well sealed, Mark. I'm telling my stuff well sealed, but in fact, I just went through. So like my, I don't know if I talked about this. My wife. Here's a food thing I haven't talked about. I have like at any one time, a couple 100 pounds of grain in the house, and beans, all the stuff, beans, grains, rice, all that crap, a couple 100 pounds, and it was in bags. You know what I mean? Because I don't have like a garage, so I can't like put things into like 5-gallon drums and store them somewhere. And so they were in bag and they were rolling around, and like I'm always petrified because it's happened. I've never had it spread through my entire pantry, but I've had bugs come in on stuff and then get into like one bag, but I've never had it transfer. And the bags were flopping all over the place, and so you're looking for a particular thing. So I bought all half-gallon mason jars and a thing that hooks my vacuum sealer up to the mason jar thing, and vacuumed, like my entire kitchen now is just like perfect mason jars labeled with all the stuff in it. And it takes, I forget how many pounds fit in each mason jar. It's like 3 or something like 2-3 pounds of 3 pounds of wheat fitting in. And so that's it's perfect now.
Yeah, my wife would literally get turned on by that.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And my wife was like, I went from hating the kitchen. She also made me take all the liquor, which was all like kind of in the open place, and put it back in the pantry where all these bags used to be. She's like, I don't want to see all these like half-empty liquor bottles around. I'm like, all right, I don't care.
Well, drink them.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's something, you know. Here's something else. So I had to buy cake flour because my birthday last week. And so my son Booker, he likes to make the Milk Bar, cake, which
everybody loves that thing.
Yeah. But he likes to make it so like the way it's made, if in case I don't know, you live under a rock, you've never seen this cake, is she bakes a sheet cake, then like a thin sheet cake, like on like a sheet pan, right? Not like a thick sheet cake, and then cuts out discs, and then chums up one because there's not enough left over because she doesn't want to waste anything. And then puts the icing, and then makes cake crumbles and smashes it all together inside of an acetate ring, inside of a cake ring, and then sets it in the freezer overnight, pulls it out, and there you go, 6-inch cake, $60, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So like there it is. So he makes it, and of course totals the kitchen. Obliterates the kitchen. Like I could have made the cake 1,000 times faster than it took to clean the kitchen after he was done with it because, I don't know, whatever. He's autistic. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But he makes the cake. But he makes me buy cake flour because, of course, he's not going to shell out of his own pocket. He's not going to reach into his own pocket, even though he's 21, to buy his dad cake flour.
Of course not.
No. So I go and I buy the Swan's Down cake flour, which I buy. And for the first time ever, I read the side of it. You know what it says on the side of it? Big lie. This is my thing. They say that it's 27 times finer than AP flour. That's garbage. That's just a load of horse hockey. That's just garbage. That's just not possible.
You'd have to ask my pastry chef for that one.
Well, so like I didn't have time this morning because I just discovered this pretty recently. I was going to do it. I have a microscope at home. I'm just going to freaking do it. I'm going to look at it, and I'm not one of these I'm not going to be like, we need a class action lawsuit. I need my $3 back. You know what I mean? But like, come on, man.
We should find a sieve that is 27 times finer than the next one, and then dump the flowers into them side by side and see what happens.
See what comes through. Well, so they claim it's like 3 times smaller on the side, but then someone on my Twitter put it in and was like, hey, they measured this back in 1933, and I don't think they've updated their copy. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe it was true in 1933. But it's just not true. And also, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
How'd the cake come out?
Good.
There you go.
Yeah. And I have to say, she does that cake crumble, which is like a streusel top, but like, with what's it called? What are those things? Sprinkles.
Mm-hmm.
And
confetti.
Yeah. And he overdid it, and they went brown. Better.
Interesting.
Yeah, it took on that...
Hey, sometimes mistakes turn into the best ideas.
Yeah, took on that brown butter stuff, Anyway. What about you, John? Anything in your restaurant world?
No.
Yeah, you fixed all the leaks in your ceiling.
Finally,
you now have a watertight kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, aren't you fancy?
For now, at least. We'll see until it happens again.
Where was the leak? Like, what was it leaking onto? Because to me, that's always the most fun. And what was the source of the leak? Was it rainwater?
No.
Oh, no.
It was over every inch of dish pit. So
oh,
couldn't get anything clean.
No,
so
man.
Shut everything down. It was a lot of fun. It's great.
New York. Yeah, I mean, it's like you're always dealing with some other jerks thing here in this city. You know what I mean?
Or just age. I mean, everything in New York is old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even dealing with the vendors every week, like my linen company's been shorting me, and it's just like...
I think they do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Let me ask you.
He was paying attention.
Yeah.
Would it be cheaper to just... I don't know anyone that does it. Would it be cheaper just to get like a home washer dryer? No?
Not anymore. You got to pay somebody $20 an hour to do it.
Yeah, I guess that's the truth.
Used to be.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Linens is one of those things where we had a guy, I don't even know his name. We just called him Mopey because he was always so mopey. And then he would show up, but he would always get the billing wrong. So we wouldn't pay for like 3 months. We wouldn't know what's happening. All of a sudden we would get 3 months of bills. And then we're like, what the hell's happening here? I don't know. Linen's always a nightmare.
Linen.
Yeah.
You know? How harsh are you with your cooks on the number of towels they use?
I hate to say I used to be, but I'm not anymore. But I used to be, and I'm not anymore.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, I don't even remember. How much does it cost to have one of those things swapped out?
I hate to admit it. I haven't looked at a linen bill since I stopped like day to day on my own. It's all the same. You know what I mean? Like, and at the end of the day, it's like you could shop at the 10 different companies. They're all, you know.
Yeah, I feel like there's like, it's just like
5, we'll call it 10 years ago, you know, like I would say, you know, each cook got 5 towels.
5 towels a shift.
That was it.
Yeah.
Couldn't get any more. Don't mess it up. Da, da, da. Now it's just, you know, they're everywhere.
23 cents a kitchen towel is one of the quotes I have in my email.
What is it?
23 cents
23
a towel.
cents?
Yeah.
23 cents.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing's, I don't know.
In France, you get 1.
What the hell are you going to do with one?
I swear to God, you get 1 towel. It's a big towel, but you get 1.
You get 1 towel and complimentary food
Yeah,
poisoning.
you keep it tied to your apron.
Yeah, well, you make everyone do the old school so that they can reach for the pan?
No, I don't. I tried it when I got back from France, and like, there's a lot of things that in Europe that don't work in America. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, I remember. Well,
Like doing your own butchering. Nope.
Well, so you said that like, I guess you went to France. You had already been when you did your stages in France. You'd already been a sous chef here, right? You'd already started working for Laurent Tourondel, but then
I felt like I got a little too promoted too early for where I was, and I was young. I think I was like, one of those guys where, I was the first one in, last one out. I'm not like bragging. I'm just painting a picture. I think when chefs see that, they're eager to keep them around. So, like, make him the AM sous chef. And like, once you become a sous chef, you can't like go back. It's like the next place you go, you're the sous chef again. You know what I mean? And I kind of wanted to like, I don't know, learn a little more, or, you know what I mean? I just felt like, and also too, like here being Larry Forgione's son, it was like, especially in New York, like it was just, some chefs, it was like I never had a moment where I wasn't Larry Forgione's kid, like every day. You know what I mean? It was just no matter what. Like,
that's probably good and bad.
It's good and bad. I was just about to say, if you did something good, they'd be like, your father must have shot you that. If you did something bad, like, would your dad tell you that? Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, it never stopped. Still not really to this day, but I'm okay with it now.
Well, it's been a long, long time.
Yeah, but you add in like all those factors, and I was like, I want to go somewhere where, they don't care if I was a sous chef at my last job. They don't care that I'm Larry Forgione's kid. So
also there, it's more of a culture of like family lines of chefs, right? So it's not like
it's not a big deal there.
You can come from a line of well-known chefs and still have to stand on your own there.
Yes. Well, it's funny. Speaking of my dad, my father worked at the Connaught Hotel, and believe it or not, his commis was one of the Trois Gros sons.
No, come on.
And my dad says that this kid, it was Claude, who's now like the biggest chef in Brazil. But he said that Claude, the amount of, shit that he had to deal with was like, it made my dad feel bad. Like, he was like, look, I'm not gonna push it. Like, no matter what Claude did, it was just like, the son of famous Trois Gros. So like, they get it too there. But again, I just wanted to go somewhere to like, I hate to say start from scratch, but like, I just wanted to like go and like get my butt kicked.
Well, you didn't even speak the language.
I didn't. Took like 4 or 5 months to get the language. And again, just to paint a picture, there was no TV. I didn't have a laptop. This was before iPhones. If I wanted to call my family, I went to the payphone in town. So it was literally just the total immersion of
Good
food.
news is you don't have to call your family that often. People don't think about this. They're like, you couldn't call your family. I'm like, the good news is you didn't have to call your family that often. I mean?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was total isolation, especially for the first 3 or 4 months.
And so this was Michel Gerard's place, right? Or however you're supposed to pronounce it en français. Hey, John, Francophile.
Michel Gerard.
There you go.
That's perfect.
Yeah. That's why. That's the reason he's always here. Is in case we have a French word, he can just bust it out.
But it's just, it's 3-star Michelin. It was in the middle, absolute middle of nowhere. Again, I wanted to do the antithesis of New York, and it was an hour drive in any direction, and you didn't hit another city. I mean, it was nothing there. Like, people who ate there stayed at the hotel, which is also a 5-star, world-renowned spa, and it was exactly what I think I needed and wanted, and I don't think I'd be sitting across from you right now if I hadn't taken that year and a half.
Was he still doing? At what point was Cuisine Mansour at that point, or however it's pronounced?
So when you stay there, again, there's no choices. Like, you can't eat anywhere else.
Right.
So when you stay there, there's 3 different restaurants to eat at. There's the Cuisine Gourmande, which is like the 3-star. Then there was Cuisine Mansour, which was like we'll call it the spa cuisine. And then there was this restaurant, which really kind of struck me the most, was La Ferme aux Grives, which was very similar to Peasant, which I know we'll get into. You walked into this restaurant and it was very like rustic and French and farm. There was a pig always roasting on the rotisserie, and everybody started their meal with a mason jar of foie gras terrine and, homemade crusty bread. Like, it was...
So not the same as the spa cuisine.
No. But you have to see it to believe it, but like it actually looks like Peasant, which, kind of full circle in life. Sometimes universe works that way. But
is that where you spent most of your time in that one?
No, I never really got to work there. I used to ask if I could hang out in there, like on my day off or days off or whatever. But I never got to fully work there. I did Mansour first and then Gourmand, and I really hit it off with the poissonnier in La Gourmande. So like, I just basically was his commis essentially the whole time.
So how did it work? If you were there and staying there, did everyone like try to have the spa thing, which he's famous for, by the way? I mean, famous for this.
It,
yeah. Then the next day they go to get the foie gras and the pig, right? I mean, like,
I don't know. I didn't follow the guests around. I don't even think I ever saw the guests, to be honest with you. I don't know exactly how that all kind of worked out, but
yeah, he's still kicking, right? He's like 90 years old.
I mean, when I was there, he was in his 70s, and he worked. If he wasn't traveling, he worked every service at La Gourmande. I think he's like this tall too.
We started out at like 6'1", and then just keeps getting shorter every year. Is what happened?
He was a little guy, but I'm telling you, to this day, I've never been in a room where everyone, stands at attention when he walked in. I mean, everyone. Didn't matter who you were, didn't matter what position you were. Like, he walked in, and he would walk through and he'd taste your stuff. I mean, the intensity every day at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I can't remember. And it was every day. Tasted the sauce. He looked at your mise en place. I mean, it was wild.
All right, so let's do our little bookkeeping here. So if you have any questions for Marc and you're listening live on Patreon, call in to 917-410-1507. That's 917-410-1507. And how do they join the Patreon there, John?
Patreon.com/cooking issues. We got a bunch of different membership levels. You get cool things at every level. You can get the video feed at all levels. You get a discount to books at Kitchen Arts and Letters, from guests that we have on that have books that can be sold. Prioritize questions getting answered, access to the Discord, and all these really great things. So you should join patreon.com/cooking issues. And if I can make a quick plug, Dave, of
pluggity.
One of my friends, for those of you around New York City, is organizing a sort of leadership event with Ari Weinswig from, what's the Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's going to be a really great event. I am trying my best to go. It's going to be at Alcora, so there should be some great food too. Reach out to me on Instagram.
Just trying, not going to make it. Just trying.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to take time off.
It's true.
I feel really guilty whenever I do, but whatever. That's a separate issue.
All right.
But yeah, reach out to me on Instagram, NihulJ. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned your dad. For those of you, I don't know, that don't know, your dad's Larry Forgione, who's like so I've said this a lot to people who have asked me, which isn't that much actually. So I haven't said it a lot because no one asked me. But it's like, I think that there was in America a huge kind of shift in the 90s where into the early 2000s where people really started focusing on American food and like as like a real important cuisine, and we had our own voice as opposed to just mimicking what's going on in France or looking at what's going on in France. And then I had to remember when you were coming on and looking at this, I was like, oh my God, but your dad was doing this since the 80s. You know what I mean? Like American Place opens in 83. 70s. Yeah. So he's like way early in the whole, like, America's a real place for food. Yeah,
there's a picture that I have hanging in Forge where, you know, he's wearing the toque and the whole thing. But it's 1979, standing outside the River Cafe with American asparagus, morels, artichokes, like all in a basket. And that had never been done on the East Coast up until that point. And that's in the 70s, if you were thinking.
Right, and he was cooking.
He had to go to the airport.
He was cooking with country ham, putting with eggs, like American, not just American ingredients, but also like some American flavors, American ideas.
It started as French cuisine with American ingredients, and then it kind of evolved into a lot of history, reading books, and then it turned into, you know, him taking dishes from the 1800s or, you know, the early 1900s of American dishes, you know.
Right. So I mean, this is an aspect of American kind of restaurant culture that I just don't feel gets enough play in where we became our own culinary force. And really, what, you know, like he's doing that very early in it. So I think this is a, well, John, you're a student of history when I used to work at MoFad. Do you think people like think about this kind of switch in American restaurant culture enough, or no?
No, I wish they did.
Not anymore. I think.
Yeah, not anymore.
I think in 1990, right, if you had asked chefs, American young cooks, chefs, you know, they would kind of understand who and what was happening, this like revolution. But now, you know, I agree. Like 2023, if you asked, you know, somebody like who are the most important American chefs of all time, and I'm not making fun of these people, I'm just saying this is who they'd probably say, you know, Bobby Flay, you know, Guy Fieri, and you know where I'm going with this. Like, it's just, you know, that the kind of the forefathers of the Mount Rushmore, you know, of the Alice Waters, the Larry Forgione, the, you know, Dean Ferring, Paul Prudhomme, like, you know, all the Bradley Ogden, all these guys, you know, sad to say, but like anything, they're just kind of getting, you know,
washed away,
aged out or washed out, or none of those people that I just named are ever on TV.
Right. Well, you know, because restaurant cooking is so youth oriented, or can be youth oriented, I feel like, and this bar is probably even worse, is that there is a lack of knowledge. So I remember like, you know, all of my buddies in the early 2000s, they were like, none of my cooks know who, like, you know, name a French, you know, name a famous French. All these guys. I mean, Robuchon was still working here in New York, so they kind of knew. But they're like, you know, I tell you, but like, you know what I mean. But they didn't know kind of the history that to the people who were even my age, right? Like the Changs, the Wileys, like those guys, like them, that was still real history. But to the people who were 10 years younger than them, it was kind of gone.
Yep.
And so,
listen, I did a guest thing with Wiley. He did this Playing with Fire series that we do at Peasant. Half of my cooks didn't know who Wiley was. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe it. How do you not know who Wiley Dufresne is?
The institutional memory, and it's like, so people who aren't on TV or don't have like you know, the books or the, you know, it's just bizarre.
Yep.
And like it's very easy to trace histories, right, if you take the time. But I feel like I don't know, maybe people just don't care about the history anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We did it. I haven't done it in a while, but we used to do these like every week or maybe every month. You know, we'd like pick one of those chefs, you know, and like we'd talk about them, whether it was not every day, but, you know, maybe at like 3 or 4 different pre-shifts where we would just bring up, you know, a little history lesson that you could do in 10 minutes. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, we gave them a test or anything, but it was more just to like acknowledge, because that's where I came from. That's where I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm kind of lucky in that sense. So it's easy for me to say like, nobody pays attention. Like I literally grew up with those people. I mean, going to the Rockefeller Center event, it was all those people that I just named at the City Meals on Wheels. So, they're all very familiar to me, and I have so much respect for it, and so much respect for how hard they had to work and how hard they had to work to source those ingredients. I mean, you try to explain it. Even to me, I mean, they used to have a car that would drive to the airport 2 or 3 times a day to pick up ingredients, because it wasn't like now where I get, from Tivoli Mushroom Company. I'm not making fun of it. It's like, but now I just press whatever I want into a phone and I have my mushrooms there the next day. Like
sourcing is so much easier.
They were on the phones with a guy named, Justin, that was going out into the woods and picking whatever he could and then driving that to the airport, and then the chefs were driving
different.
And still doing 150 covers a day.
Yeah.
Like, try to wrap your head around that. It's like,
but I think, now that I'm thinking about it, talking about it, I think maybe one of the reasons, back in the 2000s, this wasn't the reason that people weren't paying attention to the history. I think that was just different because they were focused on like all the stuff that was coming out on YouTube. But there's also the phenomenon where I think because so many different people aren't represented in kind of the canonical history, that they just want to be like, I'm not part of that, so I don't really want to learn it. And I think that that's valid, but I think, eventually when more people are part of the history, maybe people will want to have history again, you know what I mean?
I hate to sound like Old Man River here, but like I don't know about you, but like, I used to come home from work and I would like read a cookbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now, never mind when they get home from work, that they're on the subway already on YouTube watching, somebody ride a donkey into the ocean off a cliff and do a backflip. You know what I mean? Because it got a million likes. You know what I mean? Like
that video exists because that's what I'm going to do right after. I am.
But you know what I mean? Like it's
I love
just
donkeys.
Different. It's just different.
Yeah.
I used to go to whatever her name was, Bonnie Slotnick's bookstore on my day off.
You know what? We only went. John and I, for the first time, only like 3 years ago went. I'm so embarrassed.
Like 3 months.
Yeah,
ago,
but I used to sit at Barnes and Noble on the floor for 3-4 hours. I couldn't afford to buy a book.
Listen, I think it's good and bad because I think it's good and bad. The people, it was so hard to get information. It was so hard. Information was like gold. Mm-hmm. Like even up until the 2000s, right? You could not get the information. So like I wanted to learn how to run a rotary evaporator. There was nothing. There was no websites. There was no nothing, right? So like
I called Wiley.
Yeah. Well, I taught. No, I was the guy that brought. Anyway, so like, but like so we're working on stuff, and now that information is available in a way that allows people to grow so much faster. I think that's 100% great. But the downside is that a lot of the individual voice has been lost. So the miracle of cookbooks back in the day was you could get lost in somebody's mind, And I think that there's a kind of like that kind of human to human understanding that's transferred through a cookbook or a long format thing or an album.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Is like not as prevalent. So I think that like for every gain, there's a loss. I don't think anything's 100% gain or 100% loss.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Agreed. You just reminded me like I'm of those days, and like I remember I stumbled across the Zuni Cafe cookbook, and talk about getting lost. Like I was on the I'd bring it to the beach and like read it as if it was like a novel. And then I remember the first time I went to San Francisco, and you know what I mean. I couldn't have been more excited to go see this restaurant. It makes it like, but that was before I couldn't just Google what the Zuni Cafe, videos, and like, it's like, it was like a pilgrimage just because I had found this book and like fell in love with what I was reading and her voice.
How was the meal?
Amazing.
Yeah,
I had oysters, the Caesar salad, the chicken, you know what I mean? Like everything you're supposed to eat at Zuni. And I was by myself, and
you like solo dining?
I was meeting, I don't remember what I was doing there. I was meeting, maybe it was my dad, I don't know. I was meeting somebody in Northern California, so I went a couple days earlier specifically to go to Zuni Cafe. I was probably like 20 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
But the staff like sat with me because I was by myself. It was just like a magical night.
Do you automatically VIP solo diners?
I always, if I'm there and I see a solo diner, I will 99% of the time go over and strike up a conversation. And you can usually get the vibe right away if they want to talk to you or if they don't. But I usually bring them like a little amuse-bouche, and then hey, how's it going? It's funny sometimes when people have somebody coming to meet them, they'll tell you that right away, so that they know that they're not by themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for my wife. It's all good, man. I was just coming over to say hello.
Yeah, like my idea of solo dining is like inserting like 5 50-cent hot dogs into my face on the run down the street. You know what I mean? Like
I love sitting by myself at the bar.
Yeah,
I do. I love it.
I'm not good at it. You know what I mean? Like I'm well known for consuming everything very quickly. So yeah, very quickly. So like Nastasia's had how many meals have I ruined of yours, Nastasia?
So many, which is weird that you don't like dining by yourself because you think that you don't care whether people are there with you or not when you do have people there.
That's not true. It's just I eat so much faster when I'm alone than even when I'm with people. So like, and the same thing goes at a bar. So like someone puts a drink down, I don't have anyone to talk to. Boop.
Boom. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then what? I'm going to sit. I mean, what am I? I'm either going to get shellacked or I have to sit there and wait. What am I, staring? Like this? Staring.
I mean, you could talk to somebody.
Now, who am I going to talk to?
I mean, it sounds like you're pretty good at talking.
Well, not like look.
You have a radio show.
Yeah, but like I could talk to people who like.
I get it.
Like here, you're coming here, and it's like, oh, he wants to talk to us because he's coming, so therefore we can talk. But like at a bar, this person is sitting next to me. I don't know them from a hot rock. Why are they going to want to talk to me for? You know what I mean? Anyway.
It's always nice though when you do
book?
meet somebody that wants to talk. So it's like a revelation, especially now.
What do you think about people reading books at the bar? We used to have a couple of people that would come in and read books.
I used to do that. You
Yeah?
know, my day off, I'd sit at a restaurant and at the bar with a book. Yeah.
I find it hard, like part of my kind of mental thing, I find it hard to concentrate on. First of all, I'm only ever reading boring technical stuff, so it requires a lot of concentration. And secondly, it's hard to concentrate when the people next to you are having conversations that I can hear because it intrudes into my brain. It's like somebody putting a small ice pick into my head and erasing. So then I'll have to read the same line 1,000 times in a row. You know what I mean? That's you read it. You read when you go out solo, Stas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I don't like? I don't like the solo phone stare.
Oh, when they're just doing it just to do it?
Yeah. Oh, I had it. Well, when they're just sitting there on the phone the whole time because the light is bad. My issue with it is that they don't look good. You know what I mean? And so like they throw that blue light. I had this idea. So nowadays, you know how your phone now at night, like it turns kind of yellowish so that it's got I don't know whether yours does. Our phone, like at 8 p.m., it puts like a yellowish tinge on the screen.
Huh.
Yeah. So people don't look as like blue and dead at a bar, right? But like my idea was, what if you had a phone that was like, make me look good while I'm texting, and it had like motion, like yellow, kind of like a little bit of like a flame background, so that you had that like candlelight. Instead of this like death pallor, you had like this kind of candlelight vibe.
Listen,
on your.
I smell an app.
Yeah.
I smell an app.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
By the way, as we're talking about books, I just realized I feel like I have to give a shout out because I'm reading a book now that I haven't enjoyed reading a book this much in a while. Is Peter Hoffman's? He just put out. It's called 13 Ingredients. Yeah. Remember Peter from Savoy?
Oh yeah. What are the 13 ingredients?
I mean, I can't name them off the top of my head.
What are some of them?
I just finished reading about leeks. Another one was garlic. He tells his story through 13 ingredients, and it's. I'm telling you, it's a great read. I don't cook with leeks, even though I love them because I hate cleaning them. Yeah, well, he kind of says that in the thing, but it's not a cookbook. He puts one recipe per chapter. It's the story. He's a really talented writer, and I used to love Savoy. All right, well,
I'll check it out. I have not read it. Nope, hasn't come across my radar. I will check it out. All right, so your first job, you're working for your first restaurant job, right? Or one of your first.
My first restaurant job, I was working at the Hofstra University Country Club.
Oh, Jesus.
I was a bartender. Like? I was like 15 years old.
What were those people like? What were they ordering?
I don't think I could say that.
What were they ordering?
Back then?
Was it vodka soda back then?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically your spirit plus soda. Those are martinis.
Good tips, bad
Scotch
tips.
on the rocks. I mean, I was 15 years old. If I left there with $30 in my pocket, I was happy. But
bad tips.
I started as a busboy, and the bartender quit. And the guy was like, "Can you pour drinks?" I was totally bullshitting, but I was like, "Yeah, of course I can pour drinks." And like I went back there, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh man!
People would like give me a Scotch on the rocks. I'd give them like a pint container of Scotch.
Sure, they were happy.
I mean, it took me a week or two. I figured it out, and somebody like semi-trained me. But imagine being in high school as a bartender. It was incredible.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that that.
I still had to put the tables away at the end of the night.
Yeah. One of your early jobs, you said when you were 16, you went to go work for your dad's place, American Place, right?
I did my first summer at an American Place. Yeah.
So what's that like working at a place that your dad's? It's got to in a way suck, right? Because like we were going earlier. Like I remember, when I had bars, whenever family would come, I would say, "Listen, I'm not going to intervene on your behalf. You're totally on your own." It's like, you know what I mean? Like, because he can't pull favorite card on you, or the whole staff will erupt. So it's got to be hard.
Yeah, it was, but you got to remember, I was a kid. I was 16 years old, 17 years old, however old I was. So I also, you have to remember, I didn't know, like emotionally, mentally, that I was going to work at one of the best restaurants in the country either. I just thought I was going to work at Dad's restaurant.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So like, I just was going to work. Like it didn't like dawn on me till a couple of years later, to be perfectly honest, and that first summer, it's not like they like put me on the grill, you know what I mean? Like I was a prep cook, and I finally got to make my job after prep. I probably did prep for like a month or two, and then I was finally allowed to make the mixed green and Caesar salads.
But is that where you said that you had the classic like first day where you like hacked your thumb off? You hacked the tip of your thumb off?
Oh Jesus! Well, that was before I did a summer stage. That was because I used to go in periodically. You know what I mean? Like maybe go hang out in the kitchen before we like went to a Yankees game or something like that. Like growing up. But yeah, I was in there for one of those days. Like I was in there for a day or two. And I remember the guy's name. I think he's pretty successful now. His name is Bill McPherson. But he gave me a cleaver. Like again, at the time,
like a meat cleaver, not like a Chinese cooking cleaver.
Yeah, a meat cleaver. Imagine giving a 15-year-old kid a cleaver. And he gave me this cleaver to chop chives.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
And now imagine you're a kid. So now imagine, you can just see what happened. And I was just like, ah.
Not only that, the chives were ruined. It's so bruised. Those chives were hosed. These chives are ruined. You crushed them, you son of a bitch, with this cleaver. Meanwhile, your thumb is like...
I mean, listen, looking back on it, I probably feel worse for Bill than I did for me. I mean, when the chef...
Your dad probably ripped him up.
Well, never mind my dad. My chef, his name is Richie. Richie was a big guy. I mean, and I can't imagine what he did to Bill for doing that, but
it seems to be working all right. The thumb.
That's okay. It still kind of goes off this way, but anyway. So I spent that summer, but again, I didn't know what I was doing. I needed money. My dad was like, "Well, then why don't you work at the restaurant?" Da 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 da. And then I did the following summer for I don't know if you remember Chinois in Maine in L.A. It was Wolfgang Puck's second restaurant, but the chef's name was Cazzuto, Chef Cazzuto. They did a short-lived restaurant in Times Square called Above. I did a summer in there, which was great because I'd never worked with like Asian ingredients like that, and it really opened my eyes to like clean, simple, pure, kind of Zen.
Is that how you worked from that into Patricia's restaurant?
So the sous chef at Above, his name was Gavin, who I met working at in American Place. He then went to AZ. So then I think maybe the following year, like it gets all fuzzy in there, college, high school, I can't remember everything. But I think it was this when I graduated college.
You still know you wanted to be a pro, right?
No, I didn't. I still didn't until this time.
And your brothers and sisters aren't pros, right?
One of my brothers is.
Yeah.
And my sister just became the GM of Peasant. But I graduated and I was kind of following Gavin. Like Gavin, he then became the executive sous chef at AZ. So I went to AZ, and then we opened Pazzo, which turned into BLT Steak. We opened Pazzo, and that was with Patricia and Gavin and Pino Maffeo, who was an amazing chef and mentor. And then that was when the whole BLT thing happened in my life, because Pazzo and AZ both closed. And that was when Jimmy Haber hired Laurent Tourndel.
So let's talk Laurent Tourndel. So you are working, and this is right around when this is happening is when I was writing for Food Arts magazine. So like I was having to interview.
Didn't he wear a lettuce jacket on the cover?
I don't know.
I think it was Food Arts.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I don't remember hardly anything. Michael Batterberry was one of my mentors who was Food Arts, so he had me write that. I started writing for them in like 2004. And I remember when BLT, so like, you know, Laurent Tourndel, the LT from Laurent Tourndel, opened Steak first, right? When they opened, and then I think with Prime, I was writing an article on deck ovens, right? And you opened Steak, Fish, and Prime, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I called Laurent Tourndel, and I was like, oh, you know, because I'm supposed to be talking to him about deck ovens. He's like, actually, I like panning steaks. So, and but you guys said you cooked them in a pizza oven. But what is your feeling, because you were actually doing the work, opening those things, on panning the steak versus deck ovens versus pizza ovens on steak back then? Because that was when, because to me, the quintessential American steakhouse is a deck oven experience, right? And you didn't start with a deck oven, and the idea of panning in a restaurant, like you do it on a line in a French style place, but not, or in a bistro, but not in like a steakhouse. So you want to talk about like the theory of operation there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's most likely because of production. I mean, I think, listen, if I'm cooking, it's a tough answer it's a tough question to answer, which I like better. You know, I think if I was going to tell you what I like the best when you're cooking a steak, like if it's just one steak, me and you, we're cooking, I get to choose what we're doing it on. It would probably be charcoal with a little bit of wood to add some smoke, and that would be my best way to. But as far as like a steakhouse goes and pan versus deck broiler, it depends on the size of the place. You know, if you're in a steakhouse, and most steakhouses
do a lot of steak,
do 300 covers, right? Somewhere around there. So because it's a steakhouse, that's probably 280 steaks a night. So you just do the simple math, you know, in a deck broiler, you know, like the one we had at at BLT, for example, was a double. I mean, you could fit like 30 steaks on each level. That's 60 steaks at one time. I mean, you never did that, but you could.
How big is the sweet spot on one of those decks?
Probably 2 feet by a foot, you know what I mean? Which is where the guy's really working it.
Right.
But you could still sear, like he would pull the thing out. You know, let's say it's Saturday night, you're going to sell 50 filet mignon. You get the marks on 50 steaks. Boom, you put the thing in for a minute. You take it out. You put the steaks on the rack. You just seared 50 steaks.
Right.
If you did that in a pan or pans,
right,
you're quadrupling time, effort. And, you know, when most people go to a steakhouse, they're looking for that char and that kind of, you know, grill mark kind of
right, that hardcore
flavor.
hit.
You know what I mean? Like that's what they want. So I think when you're working in like a restaurant, like for example at Forge, you know, we pan sear the steaks. You know what I mean? But when I had American Cut, which I don't have anymore in my steakhouse, we used the deck broiler. And again, it was because of how many steaks you serve. But the early days of BLT Steak, which is where the question started, we were pan searing most of it. But again, I think it was probably that was what he always intended to do. Because you got to remember, at the time, you know, Laurent's kind of known for steakhouses now. But before that, Laurent was
French.
3-star. The place was called Cello. He came from Trois Gros.
Yeah.
I mean, he just won something in Las Vegas for like the best French restaurant in Vegas. Like everything was, arrosé, the thyme, garlic, butter, and we basted everything in that. But Pazzo had a Woodstone pizza oven. So
I remember Woodstone. Are they still around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Laurent took over this kitchen, Jimmy wanted to do a steakhouse, I think, or maybe I don't know exactly. I wasn't in those rooms, but anyway, somebody wanted to do a steakhouse. So they obviously wanted to do it for the most economically pleasing way. So they were like, just use the kitchen. And Laurent was probably like, well, I'm going to baste my things in a wood burning oven. That'll be perfect. We'll do a steakhouse. And you got to remember, like a Woodstone opening is, I don't know, maybe
not big.
18 inches wide, maybe, 12 inches tall, maybe. And, Laurent coming from France and who he is, he's like, I want to set up a grill in the wood burning oven. So of course I was a young, kid, like, yes, chef, we chef. So we put a sheet tray into the oven and then put bricks on the sides of the oven, and then put sheet tray racks on top of the bricks, and then made a fire in the oven, and then took the coals and put the coals underneath the sheet tray rack.
This was, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure that you weren't legal to have open fire in that thing.
Oh, never mind legal. It was idiotic because you could only fit 2 porterhouses on this stupid rack. It was
right, because it's a tiny,
man. And to get in it, you had to go like this and then like this.
For those of you that don't know, Woodstone actually, even though it's wood stone, like they say that gas works just as well in their ovens. And then if you're going to use wood, you're supposed to be a little bit of wood on the sides. You fire it and you move it over to the edges. You're not supposed to fill it with racks.
I mean,
because it's not that big.
Fast forward to the restaurant's busy now, and by the way, that worked when we were doing Friends and Family and doing 30 or 40 covers, and it was great. It was cool and sexy, and it was Like, it was like, whoa, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden you start to get busy, and you realize like, all right, well, order in. You got 6 porterhouse and 8 Côte de Boeufs on back, and you can cook it on a thing like this big. I mean, the limit was basically once we got over 100 covers, like,
you're like, okay, come back in an hour.
We got to figure something else out.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of wood fires, so one of the well-known kind of, everyone loved this restaurant. It still exists. In the late 90s, Peasant opens up. Frank opens Peasant it's right by the French Culinary. Where is it? It's on like Elizabeth. Yeah, Elizabeth. And ran it for 20 years, and I interviewed him about this, about wood fires, is that he basically is like, I'm going to do the big old wood-fired oven, which he basically built, right?
Yep.
And, classic, whole roast pigs and all this, and it's just a place, all the chefs I knew would go to Peasant and, just have a nice meal. And then he decides to give it up, give us the date, he decides to sell, he sells you the restaurant, you took it over.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you the backstory first, and then I'll tell you when I took it. But so I did in it because it's a funny, crazy story. But I was hosting an event there for the New York Food and Wine Festival. I'd always loved Peasant. I lived on Mulberry between Grand and Hester for a little over 10 years. So I ate at Peasant probably 20 times. And if Frank, so we were friendly. I wouldn't say we were friends, but we were friendly. He always took great care of me every time I came in, But he was always working the pasta station. I mean, chef. And I give this speech at the event that I'm at, how much I love Peasant and how much, every chef kind of wishes deep down that they could be Frank, but we have these, delusions that we have to, be on TV and have an Instagram account and open multiple restaurants. And it's kind of just like how the world has turned into. But Frank is a chef, old school. And I tell him how much I love Peasant and how much it's near and dear to my heart. Anyway, so after the speech, he comes over to me and he gives me this look. He's just like, did you really just mean everything you said? And, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a bullshit artist, And he's like, okay. And he stroked his beard and, we just drank a couple for the rest of the night. And then he called me like a couple months later, and he's like, I just want to make sure. I'm going to ask you again. You really mean everything you said? And I was like, yeah, Frank, Jesus. And he tells me that they're retiring and da-da-da-da. And, but I had no idea where he was going with this. I thought maybe he was going to invite me back to do like a night, guest chef night. He was asking chefs to, we all do that towards the end of a restaurant. And then all of a sudden I understand what he's saying, and I like cut him off. I'm like, are you asking me if I want peasant? He's like, yeah, what the what does it sound like I'm saying? What's the matter with you? And I was like, oh, shit. I mean, wow. This was in August. And I had already signed a contract to open a restaurant, a wood-burning Italian restaurant in the meatpacking district. Thank God it didn't happen.
Yes, what a nightmare. Meatpacking is such a freaking nightmare.
Again, that's a longer story why I wanted to do that, but it was a necessity. My wife was pregnant. It was a big thing. Anyway, and I knew saying yes to peasant was going to really
say no to that.
Yeah, but I couldn't say no. I was like, I don't care what's going to happen. Like, no, you know what I mean? So I just said on the phone, like, yes, I'll take it. Yes, we'll figure it out. And then I'm like, when? And he's like, well, December 31st is my last day. I'm like,
December 31st, what year?
2019.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Frank, it's September, man. Like, I don't know if I can get all this like done to open a restaurant in January. Like, he's like, well, December 31st is my last day. Anyway, so I took it over January 1st, 2020. I think everybody kind of knows what happened.
Yeah, you had 3 good months there, Mark.
I did. It was a fun 3 months.
Yeah. Oh, geez, Luis. But it's back, and it survived. Survived.
Crushing.
But so and it's still maintaining the same kind of vibe with like a lot of the stuff off the
And
off
he
the
didn't.
wood.
He didn't ask me to keep it peasant. I asked him.
Oh, really?
And yeah, Frank being Frank was like, you do whatever you want. It's your restaurant now.
Well, that's nice.
But I kept the staff. Most of them are still there. All the kitchen guys. I don't think I've lost any of them since he left.
So before we run out of time, your flagship, your name restaurant Marc Forgione is under renovations right now. You want to tell that story? What happened?
Yeah, man. New Year's Eve, 7:00 at night. I mean, it's out of a book. It's out of a movie. I mean, 7:00 at night, New Year's Eve. We just had our first seating, and the cooks look at the chef and they're like, "Gas is off." And the chef's like, well, what do you mean? Just turn the knob. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, stop. And they're like, no, chef, I'm telling you, the gas. Who turned the gas off? So we go around the back to see if somebody turned off the thing. Gas is on. Go downstairs. We check breakers. Nobody knows what to do.
Because that just doesn't happen.
No.
I've had many things happen.
Me too, man.
That's not.
Like I said, that's
not one of the. So what happened?
So again, we had I hear music.
We got 2 minutes.
So, we shuttle people to peasant in 1/5 because we don't know what else to do.
But how'd the gas go off?
To this day, we don't know. We're still having an investigation.
An animal died in the tube? What happened?
We still don't know. We just had everything repiped. Con Ed is trying to test it.
And everyone knows how awesome it is getting gas work done here in this. All right. So let me ask you some questions. So I was looking at the menu at Peasant. I see you buy ham from Cesare Casella. That's a great move. I see you're staying on your Mulberry Street roots and you buy stuff from DiPaolo's. DiPaolo's is the best place. Now, here's the thing. Fennel pollen, I thought was going to be a huge ingredient. You have fennel pollen with the roast pig. That's something they used to do at Peasant still, right? So you keep the fennel pollen. Why didn't fennel pollen ever become as big as I thought it was going to be?
I don't know, but I do think you see it at I hate to say the right restaurants, but, a lot of chefs that I know and respect use fennel pollen.
Yeah. What about you put gremolata on a steak? I only ever used to have that on ossobuco. My mom used to make, and she put the gremolata on. You call it Dad's gremolata, and people don't know you. They're like, "Oh, your dad. That's nice." But
it's a bone marrow and red wine reduction.
So you put the bone marrow
instead of olive oil. It's bone marrow.
Oh, nice. All right, strong. I'm gonna run out of time. All right, I was gonna ask you about different gnocchis because I know you, but I wouldn't have time. How about this? Why don't you just say what it's like being the Iron Chef versus being a challenger, because you're on both sides. Like, how much different is it when you know the kitchen?
I mean, the Iron Chef definitely has the upper hand in that sense. You know what I mean? You figure out little tricks and nooks and crannies.
Yeah, but are you like? Did you like doing that back in the day?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not hating on today's world, but there was a time when Iron Chef was so pure, and it was great ingredients and great chefs going against each other without any hoopla.
Yeah. What was your favorite one that you did? Favorite of your episodes?
I just did swordfish, and I really, really enjoyed it. Again, it was just like a pure ingredient. It wasn't like Halloween candy or something stupid. It was.
You like cooking with swordfish?
Yeah. I used to get it from Alex. He just retired. Blue Moon, rod and reel.
I don't know, swordfish. I ate so much of it overcooked in the 70s that I never.
No, it has to be good. I mean, I don't just like go into Key Food and buy swordfish. You know what I mean? Like
just a bag of worms. You just buy a bag of worms.
No, I mean, I get it from fishermen, straight from the fishermen. It's the only way I eat or buy swordfish.
Yeah. Someone needs to do a prep of just swordfish worms.
Yeah, and I wouldn't order swordfish in a restaurant unless it's a chef I know either.
Well, Marc, thanks for coming on. We have more to talk about, but obviously we didn't get time. And I didn't even get to ask you on what the hell's the difference between a pizza and a pizza. Is there a real freaking difference? Or is it just a little fluffier? What's the difference?
No, the whole thing is different. It's rice flour, soy flour.
And that's in where Otto is. That's 1/5, the new restaurant.
It's ice cold water when you make it instead of warm water. It's a 3-day fermentation. It's as wet as you could possibly imagine. The hydration is like 10% higher. It's a whole different animal.
All right, so if you want to try these pizzas, you can go to 1/5, which was where Otto was, where I used to have a big bar tab because I did some work there and they paid me in bar tab, and then they went out of business before I could use it.
We could honor it.
All right. Well, Marc, thanks so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Anytime.
Cooking Issues.